Alright guys, BLM here, back with a new video. And here we're finally back talking about Survivor 41. And here we will be doing my mid-season power ranking for the season. Now, full disclosure, this video was actually supposed to be coming out last week, as I typically like to do these videos at the point where we know that the merge is coming. However, I decided to change things up this time. It seemed to work out in my favor where, again, obviously we got a two-part merge episode here, so I'm still technically doing this before the merge vote. And also, this is technically, from what I understand, the official halfway point in the season, where there are supposedly going to be 12 episodes a season. We're at episode 6. So again, I felt like it made more sense to do it now than it did after last episode, which at that point I felt like I had a lot less information about how this season could possibly play out. So this video will be my mid-season power ranking. That means I will be ranking every player left in the game based on how likely I feel like it is that they're going to win the game, whether that be from in-game reasons or from the edit. Now, to go along with that, I will also talk about the players that have been eliminated so far and talk about my opinions of them throughout the season as well, as long as talking about my general thoughts on the season halfway through it. And with that, let's get into that. So again, Survivor 41 here seems to be a kind of a divisive season. It seems that some people really hate how advantage focused it is and hate some of these changes that are being made from a production standpoint. And I will say overall, I do really enjoy this season so far. I do think this season has the makings of what could potentially still be a top tier season, but it's probably going to end up being a mid-tier season for me personally. One of the biggest boons of this season is its cast. I think this season's cast is still incredible. I really like the majority of the people that are out there, and while certain people aren't getting as much screen time as others, I do still think this cast is one of the better ones in recent history. In terms of the advantages, I'm very mixed on them as a whole. I actually like the shot in the dark die, and while we haven't seen it come to play, and I don't think we will personally, I do like that element to the game, as I do think it encourages blindsides. However, there's other things I don't particularly like. I don't like how much people's votes are being wagered here, where, again, through that beware advantage, where if you find it, you can't vote moving forward, or through these other risk-reward style dilemmas that you risk your vote. I don't like how much we're taking away votes from a tribe that's already very small. I think that's one of my most fundamental issues with this season in terms of the pre-merge is the fact that we had 6-person tribes, no swap, and also taking away votes and everything. It lessens the potential of these earlier rounds to me, to where pretty much every vote outside the Sarah vote has been kind of ho-hum to me, and has been a vote that has lacked the potential that would possibly be there if we had bigger tribes with more people voting, more potential for bigger moves to be made. And coming into this merge episode, obviously I hate this merge twist. Everything here is so bad. It's essentially like we're in Australian Survivor, in the worst parts of Australian Survivor, where we have a non-elimination episode. We have a convoluted merge twist where half the tribe is going to end up getting immunity. We also have a dumb dilemma from Erica where it's like, obviously she's going to take it. It's like, why would she not take the opportunity here when if she doesn't take it, she's not going to be immune? Like, this is ridiculous that this is even a thing. Really, all the production decisions that they have made around this merge to me are terrible. And it does make me worry moving forward, considering Jeff has said that, there's more twists on the way, which is not a great sign. But either way, I am still enjoying the season. I think largely due to its cast, and also I really like the new editing style of the show, where I do think they're playing around with the editing format, and I do really enjoy that as well. But I do feel like there are a whole bunch of other production decisions that are kind of getting in the way that don't make the season live up to its potential so far. But with that, let's jump into the players themselves. And again, at first I want to talk about the players that have already been eliminated and talk about my thoughts on them now. And first up, let's talk about the first boot in Abraham, who, I pretty much called it, right? Like, I feel like I got a pretty good read in the preseason on Abraham. I expected him to be the first boot. I expected him to be someone that was a bit domineering and probably not get along with his tribe. I will say that he's probably a more competent player than I was expecting. Again, I thought he was just going to be this like really delusional figure on the tribe, and I don't think he's necessarily that. But either way, again, I called him as the first boot. I did not think he was going to do well, and I do feel like I was correct on that. Next up, we got Sarah, and I was so sad to see Sarah go home so early. I really like Sarah, and I'll say I'm even more shocked because something that I base my entire cast assessment around is the fact that we were getting so many promo photos and footage of Shan, Ricard, and Sarah being together. And I was just assuming coming into the season, this is going to be the 3-person alliance that like runs the Uwa tribe, right? Like I was 100% assuming that. So because I was very high on Sarah coming into the season, I thought there was no real chance she was going home in the premiere, even to the point where like coming into Tribal, where like the show really makes it clear that Sarah is a big target here. I was like, she's going to get out of this, right? Like Brad's going home here, but no, I mean, again, I was wrong. I really like Sarah. I do think she's someone that seems to be a savvy thinker. I think she's someone that could be a good player on a return, but more than likely we're not going to see it. Next up, we got Voce, and I will say I was very wrong on Voce based on my initial thoughts on him. I don't remember exactly where I was on him during my cast assessment, but I remember right when the bios came out, I was thinking Voce was going to be this big egotistical figure on his tribe, and he was really anything but that. I think Voce came off as pretty likable to me, and I feel like he's probably the most screwed over out of the pre-merge boots, where really a lot of the reason he gets taken out is due to Tiffany not understanding the rules, because like Tiffany didn't understand how Xander's advantage worked. So because of that and her wanting to be very cautious at that point, she turns the vote on to Voce, while otherwise he would have been safe. So it's like, I do feel like he kind of gets screwed over there. I do think he's actually probably one of the better players of the pre-merge, which is a pretty big surprise for me coming into the season. Next up, we got Brad, and I love Brad as a character. I was surprised I love Brad as a character because, again, coming into the season, I was pretty low on Brad. I thought he was going to be like a Terry Dietz type, and not in a good way, more so in like being very honor bound and just not being particularly interesting. But no, he has a lot of Tony in him that I was surprised to see. Again, that scene of him running to the water well and back is hilarious. You have him upright telling Sarah and Shan that it's between them two. We have everything in his boot episode was just such a great character piece for him. Like I really love Brad as a character, as a player, and while he didn't play as I expected him to, he's still not a good player, with him having a more bombastic energy than I thought he was going to have. Next up, we got JD, and I love JD. I mean, JD is a really fun character and a really fun player on this season, but someone that I do think was greatly harmed by his age, which is something that I talk about a lot in my cast assessments, is about how these younger players, like 20, 21 years old, aren't really skilled to be playing optimally in a game of Survivor or Big Brother, as usually they do lack the life experience to play on the same level as a lot of the people older than them. But in the preseason, I was thinking that JD was going to be able to kind of avoid that. I thought JD seemed to be the most mature of the three. However, I think now looking in retrospect, I think JD might be the one that has the most to learn out of the three 20/21-year-olds. And while that might sound like a bad thing, what I'm really saying is I think JD has a lot of potential to do a lot better if he were to return a few years from now. I think if he was like 25 playing Survivor, I think there's a lot of potential there for him playing a really great game. At the point that he played right now, I don't think it was all there. Last up for the pre-merge boots, we do have Jeannie. And I'll be honest, I didn't get much from Jeannie. I mean, I think Jeannie seems like a lovely person, but in terms of the game of Survivor, I just think she was outclassed by a lot of the other people that were out there. She seemed to be one of the least active players on her tribe and seemed to be constantly on the outskirts. And I don't think Jeannie did much gameplay wise there. And to be honest, she didn't really bring much entertainment to me on the show either. But with that is the pre-mergers. Now we're on to the 12 people left in the game, and here we will be ranking remaining players based on how likely I think it is that they win the game. Again, this can be based on the edit, this can be based on the actual gameplay. It's really just who I think has the best chance to win. And with that, let's start off at the bottom of the list here at number 12. The person who I think has the smallest chance to win the game at this point is Heather. Largely because, who is Heather? I mean, she's got no screen time on the show. I mean, up to the merge here, she's only gotten 2 confessionals the entire season. Now, I will say that coming into the season, I was high on Heather, and after the premiere, I wasn't actually out on Heather. I mean, even though she got the least amount of content out of the entire cast, I was thinking that, oh, this could be like a Tina Wesson situation where Tina was invisible in the first episode as they were like intentionally hiding the winner. And I thought this could be a similar case for Heather, especially because she did get some personal content right at the beginning, but no, I think at this point it's gone. I mean, at the point where she, again, has only gotten 2 confessionals the entire season. We had this secret scene of her where she made up this dream to put the target on Sydney, which is an insane move, but like that 100% makes the show if she was the winner, or even if she was a big character on the season. I think really what it comes down to is I just don't think Heather's going to be that important to the season. Now, again, like this is not a list based on how I think they're going to place. Do I think Heather's going home next? No, not at all. And again, if Erica uses the advantage, technically she can't go home. But again, I think Heather is probably safe for the next few rounds, but I just don't see how Heather gets to the end game personally. I mean, based on her edit is very similar to me of a Sunday who was taken out right before the finale. I kind of see a similar spot for Heather here, probably like a 7th, 8th place. I feel like that's what makes sense to me. And really based on her in-game position as well, she's on the outs of the core Levu group. And while I do think the core Levu group is probably going to be broken up pretty soon, again, we'll talk about that, I don't know where Heather's really going afterwards, to where I don't think she has any natural bonds, and we haven't really seen anything from her to really support anything. So I just have no faith in her ever being able to win this season, and because of that, she's here at number 12. Now, number 11 is another person that I think has no chance at winning the game. However, I do think this person has more potential to make a deeper run, and at number 11, we do have Erica. Now, I'm a bit confused over Erica's edit, I'll be honest, because again, she's no one like Heather. Barely any content in the pre-merge. She got some content in the premiere, but even that stuff was pretty baseline. And then she got content at the point where she makes herself a target, which is obviously not ideal either. And then now coming into this merge, it did seem like she was the consensus target, to where the old Levus wanted to turn against her. And obviously she got a massive visibility spike here at the merge, but again, I feel like that's very circumstantial due to the fact that she now has this massive power and is more than likely going to use it. The question is, where does she go from here? And I will say, I think Erica might be in it for a bit longer. I mean, the thing is, like, I think she's going to flip on Levu next episode. I think that's all but locked in my mind, that I do think Ua and Yase are essentially going to come together, and I think Erica is going to flip with them as well and take out one of the core Luvu members. And with that, I do think Erica could be set up for a deeper run. Now, I mean, also she could just be taken out by the group that she flips to not too long afterwards due to her having flipped against her original group. But I still think there's potential for Erica making a deep run. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Erica has a solid post-merge. I just don't think there's any scenario where she wins the game. Again, I think if she had won the game, she would have been portrayed much more positively more prominently in the pre-merge. And because she was like near invisible there with no real solid content until the merge here, I just feel like she's not winning. But there's still potential for her being a big player, and that's why she's here at number 11. Now at number 10, and this person is someone that I will say I think is the merge boot. I think she's going home next episode, but if she survives it, I think she has a much bigger chance of winning the game than the previous two we talked about. And at number 10, we do have Sydney. Now again, I think Sydney's the merge boot. I've been saying on my live streams that every week essentially, I think Sydney's the next to go. And so much that's because like I feel like the edit's been really setting her up for a fall. And I've been expecting like, oh, the fall's going to come next episode, and it doesn't happen. It's going to come next episode. It doesn't happen. It just never happened. However, now that we're at the merge, I think this is the make or break point for Sydney. I think she's either the merge boot or she makes probably final tribal, realistically. And her edit's a pretty strange one, where she has been given consistent content the entire pre-merge and has fluctuated between positivity and negativity. But even the positivity that is there, I feel like is not necessarily there because they're trying to prop her up, and more so prop up a storyline. Like, obviously the biggest example of this is the scene where she catches fish, and we get a confessional from her saying that she's doing what the men typically do. And I feel like this was more so to propel the storyline of Danny and Deshawn, where they instantly afterwards talk about how the women are a threat and they need to get rid of the women. And I feel like that was more so what that scene indicated, more so than really a super positive message for Sydney. And again, I could be wrong, and I will be wrong if she's not the merge boot. As again, I feel like her getting consistent content is that of a typical merge boot edit. I mean, the merge boot on Survivor seasons typically are portrayed more prominently, or at least more consistently, and start off the merge by getting rid of a prominent figure on the show. And I feel like that's what they were trying to go for with Sydney. And again, with like all the foreshadowing to her downfall up until this point, I feel like she's the merge boot. However, if she survives this merge boot, again, like I think she's in it for a long haul. I think if she gets past the merge, I don't really see her going home anytime soon. I feel like it would just feel out of place for her to be taken out in the next few rounds after the merge with the edit she has been given. And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if she makes it to Final Tribal and is a losing finalist at that point. But even then, based on the edit, again, with how consistent she's being shown, there's a sliver of a chance she could win. Like, there's a sliver of a chance. I just don't think it's particularly likely, especially because we got so much negative content around her from Erica, from Tiffany, from Nasir at points. And overall, I don't think it's going to go her way. I think more than likely Yasa and Ua will team up with Erica, possibly Heather, and vote out Sydney next episode. That's what my prediction is, but again, we'll see. But either way, not feeling too great about her winning the game, and she's here at number 10. Now, number 9. We have a person here that I really wish I could put higher on the list, but I just don't see him winning the game. And at number 9, I do have to have Nasir. And I love Nasir. Nasir is such a fun presence on the show. I mean, him finding the idol and the flashback that we got along with that, like, that was one of my favorite scenes of the season, if not my favorite scene. However, I don't think Nasir is winning this game. I mean, something that actually surprised me looking at the confessional chart, he's actually the second lowest confessional getter of the season at this point. Mind you, part of that is due to the visibility spike of Erica at the merge, but still, he only has 8 confessionals over the course of this season, and that's surprising considering how much of a focus he seems to be here. But I do think Nasir, one, doesn't really have an edit to support a win, but also his in-game position seems to be pretty poor at this point as well, where we have heard Liana talk about taking Nasir's advantage. And while I'm questioning whether or not that's going to happen, I do think the fact that Nasir is on these other players' minds is definitely not ideal. If I were to guess, I would say Nasir's probably the first boot of these Luvu men. I just feel like it makes the most sense that he would go home. Really, I would not be surprised if he's within the next few rounds, if I'm being honest. Again, like I'm expecting Sydney to be the merge boot. And beyond that, I wouldn't be surprised if Nasir's the very next person to go. I really just don't see where his game is going. I mean, now we did get this one scene in the merge episode of him bonding with Xander, and I did find that pretty interesting, but it didn't really seem like a major relationship being set up that is actually going to dictate the game moving forward. And I feel like it's more so going to be a thing like where maybe Xander has the opportunity to save Nasir, and that will be his dilemma, but more than likely won't end up doing so. Again, like, I just don't see how Nasir wins the game from an in-game standpoint and also from an edit standpoint. But to me, in comparison to the 3 people we've already talked about, he was more prominent in the pre-merge on the show than both Erica and Heather, and hasn't gotten a lot of negative content that Sydney has gotten, to where I do feel like when Nasir gets to the end somehow, I think he more than likely wins pretty easily. However, I do think he's going to struggle getting there, and again, the edit doesn't really support it. So for me, he lands here at number 9. Now number 8, and we're moving on to another Luvu member. If you haven't noticed the trend here, we're already at the penultimate Luvu member. So at number 8 here, we do have Danny. And Danny's a tough one for me to rank here, because I do think if we're strictly going on game position, I do think he's probably a little bit higher. But I do think based on the edit, I have to bump him down to 8. And to be honest, even debated bumping him below Nasir as well, because I don't think Danny is winning this game either. Now, again, like, I think Danny's in-game position is much stronger than any of the people we've just talked about. We've seen that Danny, for one, has Deshawn as a very, very close ally. We see him trying to keep the men of the tribe together. We see him within this black person alliance. I think just overall, like, Danny has more going for him in the game than any of the people we've just talked about. However, I don't think the edit's supporting him. I think that's the problem, is that he had a great premiere, but it was a premiere that I noted at the time as being very circumstantial. I mean, like, again, he was so important to that episode, largely because he went to Shipwreck Island, or whatever we're going to call it. And because of that, it always felt like he was going to get a lot of content there. It's a matter of like what happened afterwards. And like, he got 0 confessionals in the next episode. That's not terrible, as it could be a cool down episode, but once he gets minimal content in episode 3, to me, like, again, not great. And also, I think in the situation about like throwing the challenges, I think he's been shown as kind of wishy-washy, where he has talked about how, oh, I don't want to throw challenge, but then is later supporting throwing the challenge. I don't think that's particularly great either. And with how hollow a lot of his content has been on the season, I really just don't think the edit is supporting a Danny win at all. However, again, it's because of his real in-game position that he is the highest of these first 5 Luvu members that are all at the bottom of the list. But even then, I have no real faith in Danny winning the game, despite the fact that I do think he is a competent player. But again, don't think he's going to end up winning this season. Now, number 7, and another person. I don't think this person's winning the game. And I know this person's still one of like the contenders from the Edgic community, and I will say I personally don't agree with it at this point. And it sucks to say because this person's my winner pick, and that person's Ricard. I don't think Ricard's winning this game. I think, to me, Ricard's been dead in the edit for a while, but I think this merge episode really tanks him to me. To me, Ricard is someone that had a solid premiere. I mean, he was able to get a lot of personal content in that premiere, but even then was kind of subdued in the edit. And moving forward from that, like, he's really just been there when necessary. Like, he's gotten consistent content in the fact that he's at least gotten 1 confessional every episode. However, a lot of that content is pretty bare bones. Now, you could say that, oh, him getting consistent content, that means that he's the winner. They're taking the time to show him. However, I will say at this point, I think that theory is completely dead. Again, I think this merge episode was pretty bad for Ricard, where really the only content he gets in this merge episode was him arguing with Shan, which I don't think was a particularly great look for him. And for him to get like no talk about his thoughts on the actual merge itself, I think is a very bad sign for him. I also feel like there's still potential for him being the merge boot. I mean, to me, I think from an Edgic standpoint, I think Ricard's probably the second most likely to be the merge boot after Sydney. Now, again, I am pretty confident it is Sydney, but if it's not Sydney, I could see it being Ricard. Again, also similar, consistent content throughout the season, being shown as a big player, with the show giving him credit for strategic moves up to this point. Again, it wouldn't be out of the realm possibility for him being the merge boot as well. But also, I will say, like, from an in-game standpoint, I will say I'm kind of underwhelmed by Ricard, where I think coming into the season, I was expecting him to be like a triple threat. I expected him to be a very good social player along with strategic player. And I think it's become clear that he really just isn't that good socially, which is really strange to see because, again, he seems like the type of person that would be very good. But he does have a very cold demeanor to him that we've heard from Brad and Jeannie and JD post-season, that they all just didn't really get along with Ricard that much. And if it wasn't for Shan being so aligned with Ricard, then Ricard would have been in a lot of danger. And I do think that's an underwhelming element of his game to me, is that while he's probably a better strategic thinker than I thought he was going to be, I mean, he seems like a very good strategic thinker. Again, I really liked his initial move, at least, of holding on to the extra vote when Shan asked for it back, as, again, I think that was 100% the correct move. I do think how he handled it the next day was very poor, but I think he gets the game on a strategic level. However, I just don't know if he's there socially. And again, I think at the end of the day, also Edgic-wise, to me, I don't think the edit's really supporting him for a win. So because of that, I do have Ricard here at number 7. Now at number 6, we're finally getting to the first Yasa member. And we're still onto people that I still think aren't winning the game at all. And at number 6, we do have Xander. Now, Xander, to me, is someone that I thought had a pretty solid premiere. I mean, while he was kind of like Danny in this very circumstantial position of getting a whole bunch of content, I did think he got decent content in the premiere, even though he was lacking a personal touch there, where I don't think he's gotten really any personal content over the course of this season. However, since then, I think his content's gone really downhill, with him being shown as either like a doofus at points, with him making bad moves, or him really just not being shown at all at certain points. Again, like, I feel like his edit so far has been very circumstantial, where he's only being shown when he's important to the story. And I don't think that's a great sign from a winner, especially when he's gotten no personal content either. The main reason he is this high, though, is because he is on Yasa. And I do think a Yasa member is winning personally. I do think the edit, including that one scene of the turtles and talking about how Yasa are underdogs and how they're going to turn it around and everything. Like, I feel like that's a very good sign for Yasa in general, in my eyes. Now, I know some people have pointed out that this scene could be a conclusive moment for Yasa, where they've already shown that they are overcoming the fact that they are the underdogs. However, I don't personally look at it that way, where I feel like that's going to be an overlying theme for the majority of the players on the Yasa tribe, especially the ones that do end up making a deep run. And I could see that being the case for Xander. But again, like, I just don't see him winning the game. I just don't think the edit is there. I don't think his game position is currently there. Like, he is not in a great current game position, where while we did see him bond with Nasir, again, like, I didn't feel like that felt like an important relationship moving forward. We know that he has this rivalry with Liana that mostly seems one-sided on Liana's end, but again, that's not a great sign for Xander. And to be honest, I think the way that this Liana-Xander feud plays out is going to be very important to Liana's storyline moving forward. But again, for Xander's, I feel like his winning trajectory is already kind of gone for me. To me, the edit's just simply not there, and I just don't think his game position is there either. But he is on Yasa, who I do think is going to produce the winner, especially because I do think the Yasa tribe is the complex tribe, which again, from Edgic, there's a theory that the tribe that's portrayed to be the most complex in the pre-merge is the tribe that produces the winner. I personally do think that was Yasa here, and I do think that is the thing that is boosting Xander up above like the Dannys and the Ricards of the world, though to be honest, still don't think he's going to win, but he is here at number 6. Now, number 5. At number 5, we have the only person that has a sliver of a chance of winning, in my opinion, from Luvu, and that person is Deshawn. And again, I don't think Deshawn is winning this game. Like, I don't think anyone from Luvu is winning this game, but I think if someone from Luvu is winning, I think it is Deshawn. Again, he is someone that, again, very consistent content the entire way through, got very good content in episode 2, and I do think he is one of the more competent players on the cast. Like, I think coming into the merge, I would have said Deshawn is probably the person that's playing the best game of the people on the island based on what's happening on the island. Take the Edgic part of it out of it. However, I think Deshawn is someone that kind of gets undermined in the premiere, where we get a lot of talk about how this is a season about taking risks, and we immediately get a confessional about not wanting to take the risk of going to Shipwreck Island, whatever we call it. Like, I think that's a bad sign for him. And I will say, I think I have a solid idea of where Deshawn's trajectory is going as well. I think Deshawn's going to be the fire-making challenge loser. Like, that is what my prediction is. Like, I think we've gotten so much foreshadowing to a fire-making challenge with Deshawn. And we get that one scene of him trying to make a fire and he couldn't do it, saying it's like hard to do on the island, and explicitly says, if you need someone to lose at fire-making, choose me. Like, to me, that just felt like such blatant foreshadowing. Mind you, it feels like so blatant foreshadowing that I do question of, are they really going to make it that obvious? And to be fair, in terms of fire-making challenges in the past, the foreshadowing has not always been super clear. Like, we got like Devin in HHH talk about how he's the fire maker for a tribe and then lose in the fire-making challenge. So, like, this isn't a clear-cut thing, but like, that is my prediction here. I do think Deshawn's edit to me feels like 4th place, losing fire-making challenge. And it would make sense why he's gotten so much content on the Luvu tribe. It would make sense why he's gotten this content to talk about fire here and there. Like, it just makes sense to me. But again, like, I think he's someone that if he slips through the cracks, if he gets the final 3, I think he can win the game from an in-game standpoint. But again, I don't think the edit is backing him up, but I think the edit is backing him up more than any of the other Luvu members. So that is why he's as high as he is here at number 5. Now number 4. We're moving back to another Yasa member, but another one that I don't have much faith in winning the game at this point, even though they were high in my projections earlier in the game. And that person is Evie. And Evie's someone that is very high in my estimations. I think she got a very good premiere episode, got a pretty good episode 2. However, it was a very overexposed first 2 episodes for her. I mean, something I calculated is that she had the most confessionals after episode 2 of any other person in the history of Survivor US, which is an insane stat. She had 19 confessionals after episode 2, which is kind of insane. And while she did get some cool down afterwards, I did feel like that bit of overexposure felt like a bit much. And really, to me, I really started to feel that Evie's edit felt similar to that of like a Kelly Kim or a Sophie Clark, who from very recent seasons have been very clear decoy winner edits. And I feel like they're giving a similar thing to Evie here. I would personally say at this point, especially because someone else has taken the forefront of the edit in the last few weeks, I would say I think she's probably more similar to a Sophie. I think Evie's probably going to be booted around final 9, final 10. That's kind of my prediction there, especially because we got foreshadowing back on Yasa that Tiffany doesn't trust Evie as much anymore, and I feel like that is probably going to lead up to something as well. Something I thought was going to be prominent coming to the merge was the Deshawn-Evie relationship that was made on Shipwreck Island back in episode 2, and I was surprised to not see that there, which I think is also a bad sign for Evie. I mean, again, like Evie had such a great first 2 episodes, but again, there was that overexposure, and then since then has kind of just been there, here and there. I mean, her merge episode was very bland, where yes, she did get a couple confessionals to introduce the merge, but didn't really get much actual strategic content or really any true overview of where she is at the merge here, which really all of this winning team of the challenge in the merge episode there, like none of them got that content, which is very worrying for all of them in my eyes, which is why none of them are top contenders here. Again, we got so much more focus on the losing team, who are probably going to be safe next episode, than the winning team, which to me screams out to me that the people on the losing team are probably going to be more important to the course of the season than the people on the winning team. So while I did think Evie was a top contender for a while, really she was number 2 on my power rankings for most of the season, I think at this point I'm significantly lower on her. And because of that, she is here at number 4. Now number 3, and this might be unpopular because I think the Edgic community is very, very high on this person, to where this person at a point was being talked about as the only person that can win, which is insane to me considering I never thought that was the case. But at number 3, we do have Shan. I really love Shan as a TV presence. She's someone that has gotten so much content over the last few episodes. Far and away the biggest character of the season, probably the biggest player of the season. However, I don't think Shan's winning this game. And it's so bizarre to me seeing how confident the Edgic community seems to be on a Shan win when I really just don't see it. For me, Shan has always been another one of these people that I feel like is the decoy winner at it. And I've been saying this for a while, that to me, Shan feels like someone that is probably going to be a mid-merge boot. I think she is in it for a little while longer. I mean, she does have a lot of storylines set up in terms of her rivalry with Ricard, her relationship with Liana, but I just feel like she's been set up for a downfall for so long now, and it's kind of strange to me how like people don't seem to pick up on it, and like I think it's because people don't want to pick up on it, because again, Shan is a great character. I love Shan on the show, but I think it's very clear the show is showing her as paranoid and being very sporadic and being someone that is cutting her allies for very little actual benefit. I mean, we've explicitly had confessionals from JD and Ricard calling Shan paranoid, and that is a very bad sign. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, oh, she could be getting the Tony from Cagayan edit. At the point that we're like banking on her getting a Tony edit is like kind of insane to me, considering how much of a unicorn his edit in Cagayan was. To me, Shan is being propped up on this season as a big player, big character, but not the winner. And I feel like she is headed for a downfall. And to be honest, if I were to make a guess, I think it's going to be from Liana. Because something I find very interesting about the editing of the relationship between Liana and Shan is how so much of it is from Shan's perspective. And we never see Liana be fully loyal to Shan. Where Shan talks about like Liana having all of her trust, Liana has never been as loyal to Shan, and even showed frustrations to Shan in this last episode, with Shan kind of outing the fact that she had the advantage. So again, for me, I really just don't see Shan as the winner of the season. Again, I think she can definitely make a deep run, but I don't think she's going to end up making it to the end and end up winning the game. And really, I think they're setting her up for a massive blindside moving forward. So for me, she ends up landing here at number 3. Now number 2, again, we're down to 2 Yasa members. Again, I think someone from Yasa is going to win the game. The question is which one, and I mean, to be honest, the choice was pretty easy for me. So at number 2, I do have Liana. And I will say, I think Liana is this high on the list because of her in-game position. I think if we're looking at it strictly from an Edgic standpoint, Liana is not number 2 on the list. She's probably closer to like 3, 4, 5, somewhere in that spot. However, I think her in-game position right now is actually very strong. Again, she is still aligned with the Yasa women, and while she has lost some trust within that, she's still aligned with them. She has Shan as well. She has the knowledge is power, which is an insanely powerful advantage, especially in a situation where everyone knows where all the idols are. And really, I do think her use of that power is going to dictate her likelihood of winning the game. I think if she uses this power incorrectly, she has no chance at winning the game. Again, the edit has really propped her up with this storyline of her taking risks, and how she needs to take risks to win this game, and how she hasn't taken risks so far. And I feel like if she doesn't successfully use this advantage, I feel like her entire storyline is null, and she would have no chance at winning the game. Also, something I find interesting too is this built-in rivalry with Xander, where the edit seems to really be propping this up, which makes me think that she steals Xander's idol, because I feel like that would make sense based on the edit. But what's interesting is that when we're seeing footage from the show itself, she's talking about taking the advantage from Nasir, which is what makes the most strategic sense from an in-game standpoint. But I do find it interesting that the show is portraying it as she is more likely to take from Xander. And really just in general, again, I think this Liana-Xander rivalry is very much going to dictate how Liana's game moves moving forward. But really, I've been impressed with Liana as a player on this season so far. Again, like out of the younger players on the cast, I actually had the least amount of faith in the preseason of Liana, as I feel like to me she seemed like the one that would have been most prone to making mistakes due to lack of life experience. But I think now it's become clear that I think she is the complete opposite. So I do think in-game Liana is in a very strong position and is probably one of the better players on this cast. But I think when taking in the edit, I feel like there's enough question marks for me to where I don't have Liana as number 1 contender. And to be honest, the debate between her and Shan was a pretty questionable one to me. So at the end of the day, I still have Liana here at number 2. Now number 1, the number 1 person on my mid-season power ranking is someone that I actually feel fairly confident at this point that this person's going to win the game. And at number 1, I do have Tiffany. Now, I've been a Tiffany truther for a while now, and really ever since the premiere, I've been pretty high on Tiffany, where I think she had an incredible premiere from an Edgic standpoint, where despite her being the target right off the bat, she is shown to have relationships with both Evie and Liana. She got that opening bit of personal content with talking about how she was an alternate on the show. She later got to talk about her surviving cancer. It's like incredible premiere from both a personal standpoint but also from a game standpoint. Then she had episode 2, which is the biggest piece of hesitancy for me with Tiffany as a whole, where episode 2 was not great. I mean, episode 2 was one where she was shown as being paranoid and again, flip the vote against Voce, largely because she didn't understand the advantage, and you get some negative content from her allies. However, she still got her way. And I feel like that is the one thing that like kind of lessens the downsides for the episode, is that even though she was shown as being a bit sporadic, she was still being shown as correct. And this is further supported by the very next episode where Liana gets this content talking about how she made a mistake in allowing other people to control her game, which I think gives further credit to Tiffany. And then since then, I feel like Tiffany's gotten consistent, solid, complex content, with her being shown as a very strategic player on the cast, someone that is very wary of a lot of the other players on her tribe, which I do think could be potential setup for her being the orchestrator of certain people's blind sides, particularly, again, Evie. I feel like more than likely Tiffany is going to lead the charge against Evie whenever that blind side ends up happening. We see her now being sketched on Liana. We've obviously seen her being sketched on Xander. Now, I do think the question here is this too much? Is that too many people that she is sketchy on to the point where who is she working with moving forward? But it still seems like she's in a very good position. Again, this merge episode to me was very good for her, where despite her being called poison by Liana still ended up backing her up by saying that Tiffany is a really great and dangerous player in the game. And then we also got this entire segment being wrapped up by Tiffany getting the final word on their relationship, which I think is also a really good sign. And for me, from an Edgic standpoint, I don't see any other possibility other than Tiffany. Now, from an in-game standpoint, again, I think Tiffany is good. I don't think she's far and away better than the other players. Like, I think she is, again, a good player to where she isn't being targeted right now at the merge, and I don't really see her being targeted for a while. Like, I would be mind blown if she doesn't get to at least like the final 7, final 8 rounds of the game. She seems to have enough social capital to be able to make some moves down the road. The question is she going to burn that social capital too fast? We will see. But again, like, based on the edit, I don't think she will. I think she is going to win this game personally. I do think the edit is there. And I think her game has kind of backed it up at points, with her surviving her being targeted in those first few rounds, her having these setup relationships with pretty much all of the Yase tribe. I have a feeling she's going to be pretty important in the Sydney vote that comes up moving forward, where we have this setup rivalry between the two from back in episode 3. I really feel like this setup for a Tiffany win is all there. But again, it's still not 100% locked in, just due to the fact that there are knocks against her edit, particularly that episode 2. But I think in comparison to the rest of the field, I don't see another plausible winner in my eyes. And again, I was wrong with Survivor South Africa very recently. So it's like, I could just be straight up wrong. But if I were to guess, I do think Tiffany is the most likely winner here. And for me, she ends up being number 1 on my mid-season power ranking. But there we go. I mean, that is my mid-season power ranking for Survivor 41. Now, moving forward, you can obviously expect a season review once the season is finished, along with a player ranking immediately afterwards. Also, over the next few weeks, I will be releasing some pretty big Survivor rankings, where I have my final Tribal Council ranking coming up next. And that should be followed by my winning and losing Final Tribal Council performance rankings as well, which all of those are very long videos. So stay tuned for those. Finale ranking will also be coming a bit later down the road. And just in general, you can expect the same style of content moving forward. But for now, that's the video. Thank you for watching.